When solving multi-step inequalities, it's going to be very similar to multi-step equations in that there's going to be more than one way to approach the problem. So I'm going to go over one way to solve each of these. That doesn't mean it's the only way, and you can solve it in other ways and still get the same answer. All right, so we're going to start solving, and I like to treat the left and right side as their own individual problems and simplify as much as possible before I start solving. That's one way to do these. So on this first problem then, I'm going to choose to do distributive property on this left-hand side. I'm going to multiply, and that's going to give me 10x. And 5 times negative 3 is going to be negative 15. Then I still have plus 7 is less than or equal to 32. Then I notice I still have some like terms. So I've got negative 15 and a positive 7. So I'm going to go ahead and combine those like terms. So it's not going to affect that 10x. And then when I combine these, negative 15 plus 7 is going to be negative 8. And that's going to be less than or equal to 32. And now that there's nothing I can do to simplify, now I'm going to start solving. So the opposite of minus 8 is plus 8. So that makes 0. Then I have 10x is less than or equal to 40. And then the 10 is being multiplied by the x, so the opposite is to divide by 10. And then we have to always remember to check, did I multiply or divide by a negative value? And no, not on this one. We divided by a positive 10, so the sign is going to stay the same. 40 divided by 10 is 4. For our next one, this is one that we tend to have some errors on because of this negative 2 or minus 2 right outside of parentheses. So you're actually distributing that negative 2. So we can't do 8 minus 2 first. Order of operations says we have to multiply first, and distributive property is multiplication. So I'm going to leave that 8 alone for right now. Then I'm going to distribute that negative 2. Negative 2 times 3x is negative 6x. And negative 2 times positive 5 is negative 10. And then I still have greater than or equal to negative 10. And then just like last time, I see I've got some like terms. I've got an 8 and a negative 10. Because they're on the same side of the inequality, I'm just going to go ahead and combine those like terms the way they are. Positive 8, negative 10 makes negative 2. And then I still have that minus 6x is greater than or equal to negative 10. And then now that I can't simplify anymore, I'm going to start solving. So I'm going to get rid of this negative 2 first. Opposite of negative 2 is positive 2. That's what's going to make this 0. So then a positive 2 on the other side as well. Don't forget to bring down that minus sign with that 6. So negative 6x is greater than or equal to negative 8. And then the negative 6 is multiplying, so the opposite to divide by negative 6. And then we divide it by a negative. So anytime I multiply or divide by a negative, that inequality sign has to flip around. And then 2 negatives are going to make a positive, but it doesn't divide evenly. So I can leave it as 8 over 6, but then I need to reduce. So then 8 over 6 divided both by 2 becomes 4 over 3. And then the next one, with a fraction, we're still going to treat it the same way. So I'm going to do this distributive property first, and this is a distributive property, the negative 3/4 being multiplied by just what's inside the parentheses. So that plus 7 is not part of the distributive property. We're taking negative 3/4 times x is negative 3/4 x. And then negative 3/4 times 8 is going to be negative 6. And I just drop down that plus 7, greater than negative 2. And just like the last couple problems, I've got some like terms here that I can combine. Because they're on the same side, I'm just going to leave them just as they are and combine those like terms. So I'm going to leave that negative 3/4 alone. Negative 6 plus 7 is a positive 1. Nothing else I can simplify, so now we're going to start solving. Opposite of plus 1 is minus 1 to make that 0. Negative 2 and negative 1 makes negative 3. And then this one we can do in two different ways, whichever one you're more comfortable with. The negative 3/4 is multiplying x, so we could divide by negative 3/4 on both sides. Or if you remember how to divide fractions, you would multiply by the reciprocal is the same thing as dividing by a fraction. Either way, we're going to get x is, and because we're dividing by a negative, we're going to flip that sign around. So less than a positive 4. And then let's look at this next one. So this one, we have like terms like we did before. However, our like terms have the x values instead of the constants. So these are still like terms, negative 8x and negative 2x. I can add those like terms. Again, because they're on the same side, I don't want to do opposite of minus is plus 2 and plus 2, because then I'm doing this on the same side. And we don't want that. Because they're on the same side, we can just leave them the same. And negative 8 and negative 2 makes negative 10x. And then I can continue solving because there's nothing else I can simplify. So minus 5 on both sides to make that 0. It's going to be negative 15, negative 5 is negative 20. Then I'm going to divide by negative 10. And again, because I'm dividing by negative, same is true if you multiply by a negative, that inequality sign is going to flip around, and that becomes positive 2. And then just for practice, I could put that 2 in the middle here. Would have an open circle, and it would be shaded to the left. Values that are less than 2. Okay, this one with the 0, this one tends to be tricky because we see the 0 and get a little bit confused, but we're going to treat it like it's any other number. So I'm going to do distributive property first. 8 times x, 8 times negative 3. There's nothing to simplify, so I'm just going to start solving. So I got to get rid of this minus 24. Opposite is plus 24 to make that 0. 0 plus 24 is 24. And then x is being multiplied by 8, so the opposite is to divide by 8. Be really careful at this step. Make sure that x comes straight down, the inequality comes straight down, and then here we divide, we get 3. So I've seen a lot of common errors that we want to flip that variable to the other side, which we can do, but we have to be very careful. So if I choose to flip that variable to the other side, I can do that, but I have to make sure that everything matches up. So the larger side is facing the 3. Make sure that larger side is still facing the 3. The 3 is the greater side, the x is the less than side. So make sure that is still true. So if we were to graph this one quick, make the number line properly. This would have a filled in circle or a closed circle because it has that equal to part. Values that are less than 3 is going to go to the left or the smaller numbers. And for the last one, going to do distributive property again just like I did last time. So then this isn't going to change yet. Negative 2 times 5x is negative 10x. And negative 2 times 1/8 is negative 2/8. Nothing to simplify, so we start solving. Opposite of minus 2/8 is plus 2/8 on both sides to make that 0. 2/8 plus 2/8 is 4/8. Well, 4/8 is the same thing as 1/2. So we can say that's 1/2 is less than negative 10x. And then x is being multiplied, so the opposite is to divide. So we're going to divide by negative 10 on both sides to make that go away. And then because we're dividing by a negative, that inequality sign is going to flip. Make sure you bring the x straight down. The inequality sign is going to flip because we divided by a negative. And then we can put in our calculator 1/2 divided by negative 10, and that's going to be, as a fraction, negative 1/20.